So we finally meet towards the end of 2024 and I can't believe that this year is almost getting over already. And at the end of the year, we are doing this little ritual which a lot of booktubers do.
Oh my god.
So we're going to be doing a year-end book tag where I'll be asking questions that are relevant to the books that I read this year, or I'll try to find answers that are relevant to the books that I read this year, and we are going to be answering them. Sorry, I'm going to be answering them. Okay, so with this, let's get started with the video. Hi everyone, I'm Archie Balasubramaniam and welcome to my YouTube channel. In my channel, I talk a lot about books, book reviews and a few vlogs and journaling here and there. So if this is like your favorite subject, then you should definitely consider subscribing to my channel. Do check out my other videos too. So without any further ado, let's start off with the video. Some of my questions are inspired by other booktubers. I'll list some of my favorite booktubers below. And also some of these questions I kind of looked around, got a couple of questions, and I'm going to be answering them. There are going to be about 10 to 15 questions and I'm trying to do it kind of like a rapid fire sort of thing. Of course, it's not like I can really delay much on camera, but yes, this is my idea of like doing this year-end book tag. Okay, so let's start off with the first video. What were your top 5 books of the year? Okay, so if I were to pick my top 5 books of the year, it would be Funny Story by Emily Henry, The Women by Christine Hanna, Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and I loved A Fate Inked in Blood by what's her name, Daniel Jensen. And I also love reading, there are a lot of favorite books this year actually. Okay, if I were to pick the last book, it's actually tied between a lot of books, but I'll probably pick First Life, or maybe How to Age Disgracefully. Okay, let me pick How to Age Disgracefully by Claire Pooley. So these are my top 5 favorite books of this year. Now let's move on to the next question. So if you have read any of these 5 books, right, do comment below and let me know, and let me know your top 5 favorites as well in the comments below. So now let's move on to the next question. Okay, which book surprised you the most in a good or bad way? Okay, honestly, when I actually picked this book called A Fate Inked in Blood, I wasn't really prepared for what was to come. I thought this is just going to be another fantasy, just going to be a very regular fantasy. But I was so drawn to the book, I just couldn't stop reading the book. It was amazing, okay? So this story is about a shield maiden. Her name is Freya and she is married off and she is currently living with an abusive husband, okay? And there are a lot of people, so she's trying to keep her power hidden from other people, and initially you don't get to know that, but then once people get to know of her, a lot of people are trying to use her for her power. So all the things that she goes through, she is her own woman, she's a very independent woman, and the kind of strength she gets, right? I mean, like, she's so strong by by her independence is what I really loved about her. So these are all the things, how she tries to go about it. So this is actually a series of books. This is the first book in that series and I loved this book so much. This is the first book, right? So the next book is probably releasing in 2025, probably in May or something, and I'm really eager to read that. So how she protects herself and how she goes about helping the people she loves, and if the people she loves and if the people she's helping are the ones that she should actually be trusting or not, is what the entire plot of the book is about, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Please read it if you're into fantasy, and read it only if you are 18 plus. Okay, so with that, let's move on to the next question now. What's the worst book or the most disappointing book of the year? So if I were to pick a disappointing book of the year, it would be Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I expected a lot from that book because it's supposed to be the British version of Gossip Girl, and Gossip Girl being my favorite series, it had set very high standards for me, and when I actually read this book, right, I kind of didn't really like it much. So this book is kind of based in the high society where Magnolia Parks is the protagonist of the story, and then she's kind of on and off in a relationship with BJ Ballantyne. I mean, it's like they love each other, but it's like they can't even be together. They can be together because of BJ cheating on her once. So it is like a lot of push and pull sort of a relationship. Sometimes it's good if there is a lot of drama and it keeps it interesting, but in this case even the drama fell flat and I didn't really enjoy reading this book much. but I've heard that the second book in this series, that is Daisy Heights, is really good, and maybe I may read it next year. So if there are any books that you would like me to add in my TBR, so you should definitely let me know so that I can check out some of these books and add it to my TBR. Most overhyped book that I read this year, okay, one is of course this Magnolia Parks. Another book that I read is Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. So I loved Coco Mellors as an author. So this is her first book that I'm reading, and the way it is written is so beautiful. Her way of writing is just gorgeous. Like it just flows so well. I felt like underlining almost every part of the book because it was that good. Okay, but then the problem is the entire plot of the book, though it is actually a very good plot, I felt like it could have been executed better, something that was a little more impactful. So this is about 4 sisters. So one of the sisters actually passes away, and the other 3 sisters are left grieving over her death. And their life takes a very different form, and like how they deal with life after their sister's death, because their sister had actually been an inseparable part of them. So how they deal with life after her death is what Blue Sisters is all about. And I don't know, it kind of didn't really impact me as much as it should have, but I felt like overall the lines of the book were great, and I really enjoyed like reading bits and pieces of it, but still like it did not impact me enough for me to give it like any rating about 3.5. So if I were to put it in a yes or no or a maybe pile of books, like if you should read them or not, I would probably say just like maybe you should try giving it a read, but it is not something that I would recommend. Okay, so with that, let's move on to the next question. Favorite main characters of the year. Okay, so if I were to talk about my favorite main characters of the year, my first favorite main character of this year would be Daphne from How to Age Disgracefully. So Daphne is a 70-year-old woman who rediscovers her passion for life at the age of 70, and I think she's one of my favorite characters. And I also really love Freya from A Fate Inked in Blood. Like I felt like she's her own woman, and she has a good side and a bad side. So she's like a very morally grey character, and I really enjoyed reading her character. So she's another character that I really loved. And another character for me would be Justin from Just for the Summer. I felt that Justin was a very patient person with Emma, and though Emma was very lovable. Okay, so Just for the Summer is a romance book, and in this book, like Emma and Justin, they kind of like they meet on Reddit, and they try to like test out their relationship. So Emma actually goes to Minneapolis, where Justin is living currently, and they kind of try to test out their relationship. But Emma has a very complex relationship with her mother, so because of which it kind of impacts her other relationships as well. And Justin, being the patient person that he is, Justin has problems of his own. I felt that he's the kind of person that every girl actually kind of deserves. So he's one of my favorite characters too. Another favorite character, of course, is from Funny Story. So Miles is my favorite character from Funny Story, because I felt that Miles is also like a really good boyfriend. Everything felt real about him, both Miles and Justin, right? Like they're like 2 eyes for a reader. Okay, both of them are really good. So these are some of my favorite main characters, and I really enjoyed reading these books. Did you discover any new favorite authors this year? Yes, I discovered a couple of new authors this year. So one of them would be Emily Henry. So when I read her book, Happy Place, I kind of didn't enjoy it much. Okay, it is my least favorite book actually. But when I read her book Funny Story, it became one of my favorite books of the year. And I realized so the reason why I gave her another chance was because when I read Happy Place, right, I felt like the way she writes, she puts a lot of emotion into it, and she really has a way of teleporting you into the story. It is just that in case of Happy Place, right, I felt like the book itself, the plot itself was not that great, and I didn't really enjoy that much. But with Funny Story, I enjoyed it so much that I'm looking forward to her release the next year. I'm also doing a video on the most anticipated 2025 releases that I look forward to reading, so you can check out some of those books there. That I'll be talking more about that there. So Emily Henry is another writer that I loved. So I'll also be exploring more of Taylor Jenkins Reid, because her only book that I've read this year is The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. She is just amazing. I'll also be reading more of Kavita Kane. So I'll also be reading a lot of Shari Lapina this year because I think that she has a way of writing thrillers. So when I read her books, Everyone Here Is Lying and The Couple Next Door, so initially Everyone Here Is Lying seemed like the story does not seem to be like, that realistic or something like that, but I kind of did a little bit of research on that, and it actually turns out it is pretty realistic. So I loved that book. I also loved The Couple Next Door, so I really look forward to reading a lot of her books. Oh, I also read her other book, What Have You Done? That did not appeal to me much though, so I've read 3 of Shari Lapina's books this year, and I want to read more of her books. So yeah, there are a lot of authors that I want to check out, and of course there's other Indian author like the debut author that I spoke about of My Tears and Words, Gopi Chand. He will also be releasing a book next year, so I would definitely want to check out his book as well. And I also want to check out Vicky Hilton's books. So I read her book The French Misconnection. So this is kind of a very light-hearted romance for people who are above 18, and this is set in like the French area. I forgot which place that is, but yeah, it's kind of set in the French grounds. Okay, so I want to explore more of her books because she's just amazing with the way of like with her way of narration. So yeah, there are a lot of books that there are a lot of authors that I want to explore this year, and these are some of them. Okay, so the next question is, which genre did you read the most of and why do you think that is? So I actually went through all the books that I read this year, and I realized that the maximum number of books that I've read are thrillers this year, and next to thrillers comes romance. But as I think, like, if you watch my videos, you already know I'm a sucker for a good thriller, and I don't know, somehow I feel like thrillers actually kind of keep me on my toes, and it's just like you don't feel like putting a book down if it's a good thriller. So of all the books that I read this year, I think First Life Wins is my favorite read of this year. And First Life Wins is by Ashley Elston. Okay, and this was also a Reese Witherspoon book club pick. It was also nominated for the Goodreads Awards, and I so enjoyed reading that book. I just couldn't put it down. And I also intend to read a lot of Frida McFadden's books because I read The Housemaid and I really enjoyed that. And I may try a couple of Neeta Pro's books as well, because I read her book called The Maid. Okay, The Maid is another thriller, and when I read that book, like, the plot of the book was kind of good, okay, but I wouldn't say it was a great book as such, but her writing was so amazing. I think I'll definitely check her out more. Another thriller writer, a thriller cum horror writer that I'll always be like, going back to is Simone St. James. I read her book called The Book of Cold Cases. It's one of my favorite reads of this year. So it has an element of horror to it, and like, I've talked a lot about this book in my other videos. So this is a horror thriller, and I intend to read more of her books. I read another book of hers called The Murder Road, but that kind of didn't really appeal to me much. But The Book of Cold Cases is a must read if you're into thrillers and horrors, because, like, in this book, the protagonist of the story, that is Shia Collins, I guess, I think that's her full name, I've forgotten. So she has kind of like she has a blog called The Book of Cold Cases, and where she actually talks about all cold cases, like cases that were never closed, and she actually meets the accused of one such cases, and she tries to interview that person, and a lot of strange things start happening in that house, and she has kind of left wondering if, like, this woman is who she really seems to be or not. So that is what this book is about. So I think, like, now that I'm talking about this book, I think I like The Book of Cold Cases a lot more than First Life Wins. Okay, so I'll go with The Book of Cold Cases in this case. Okay. Okay, which book challenged your perspective or made you think the most? Okay, in this book, there is this book, so I'll club 2 questions together. Okay, this is one question. Another question that I have is that, what is the most unique concept you read this year? Okay, I'm going to club these 2 questions and answer it. So this is actually a Brazilian translation that I read this year. It's supposed to be a horror book, and trust me, it was horror. So it is a grotesque horror. Okay, the book is called Tender is the Flesh. So this was actually commented on one of my videos by a subscriber, and I decided to go for it and try reading it. And the concept is something like I've never seen before. Okay, So all these years, like, we have normalized all of these things, right? So chicken, mutton and all of that, we have not normalized these things. So the thing is, what if one day all of these animals are infected with a virus and people can no longer consume them? Like, how would it be if humans started consuming other humans, and they kind of like, they don't call them humans, but then they are bred in such a way just like animals of the current current day and age, and their tongues are cut off so that they don't scream, because if humans scream, like, obviously it will come out as help or something. And they're also capable of learning languages, right? So their tongues are cut off, and they're brandished with hot irons. They're kept in small cages, treated like cattle, exactly like how we treat animals in this day and age. So this is how the story evolves, okay? Like, animals are no longer allowed to be consumed, and now it is humans. Humans are used for testing, humans are used for consumption, but nobody calls them humans as such, okay? And the very privileged class of people, like the other people, not just the privileged class, they all do consume human meat, but they just never call it, so that they don't feel that conscience creeping up on them. So this is what the premise of the book is, and I was mind blown, okay? So this book is a very short read. I think it is hardly like about 150 to 200 pages, and like, I would say that the book could have been written a little better, but the concept is thoroughly amazing, and overall I think it is like a must read book for everyone. Like, if you actually like get into the mindset of the person writing it, and like if you actually put yourself as a human in the place of the animals that are in that like in those cages, like going through whatever like they're going through right now, you would actually feel the horror of it. So this is a horror book. It kind of terrified me in certain places, but yeah, like in certain places I didn't even flinch, of course. But yes, like, I think like everyone should kind of read this very unique concept of a book. Okay, so the next book is book or series you wish you got to by the end of the year. Okay, the year is almost ending. I don't think I'll be able to read any more books at this point, but I haven't read Harry Potter, and I really want to get to Harry Potter. I haven't read Akotar series, and I want to read that. I also want to read the Light Lark series, which is again another thing. So yeah, these are some of the series that I want to get to, but I'll probably get to the next year. Okay, so the next question is, which is your most anticipated book of 2025? Okay, so this one is a fantasy book again, and I'm sure like a lot of you have already read Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. This was written by Heather Fawcett, and so that is the first one. The second one is Map of the Otherlands, and the third one is Compendium of Lost Tales. So the third book is releasing in Feb, and I just can't wait to read it. I just can't wait to celebrate that, and I've been eagerly waiting. I'm also planning to make a video of where like I prepare all these like I just prep myself to read that book. It's going to be a surprise for you, but I want to show you the prep phase of how I want to go about reading this book, and that is one book I'm eagerly waiting for in 2025. Okay, so now let's move on to the next book. What is your biggest reading accomplishment of this year? Okay, that is reading 53 books. It's my biggest reading accomplishment of this year, and I can't wait to read. I can't wait to check out what next year holds for me. A genre you explored this year that you would like to read more of? So generally I don't read much of horror books, and because I usually get scared, I have after effects and all of that. But this year, because I did a 1 week of horror reading challenge, I really enjoyed reading horror, and I realized that it is something I want to read more of. And fantasy too, of course, because I really enjoy reading fantasy. Usually my comfort genre is thrillers and romance, but this time I really want to kind of broaden my comfort zone and go out of my comfort zone and try reading all of this. Books you can't stop thinking about. Okay, there are a lot of books. So I read this book by an Indian author. It's called My Tears and Words. It's his debut novel, and it's a very simple story. Okay, like it's written with a lot of innocence and has a lot of innocence built into it. So I read this book prior to editing, because of which like initially like I noticed a few errors and all of that. Of course, like it was revised and all of that, but when I read it, right, like I kind of felt like I missed that age of innocence, and I kind of miss like how I used to think as an innocent person of that age. Okay, I kind of really felt that. And also, like, as someone who's probably like just stepping into college, how he perceives problems, and like, you know, when especially when he's faced with also a really like a catastrophic disaster of like, you know, like an immeasurable disaster of like losing someone he loves. I when I saw that, right, I kind of realized like how far I have come from that phase and how much I've grown. But when I went back to that, right, I kind of felt really bad for that little boy. And I think it was a beautiful book. Like, you know, it's a very simple book. It's a novel actually, hardly like 100 pages long. It's a quick read. I finished it in like half a day. But that book kind of got me thinking about like, you know, that innocence that gets lost like as you grow older. So yeah, that is one book. That is one book I can't stop thinking about. Another book I can't stop thinking about is How to Age Disgracefully, because in this book, right, like someone who is 70 years old, people who are 70 years old and probably above, like once people grow old, we kind of tend to think that they don't really have much to do, and like a lot of people don't even have the patience to listen to their stories. But these people are filled with so much of zeal for life, like you just cannot underestimate them. Like they have so much to offer to the world, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading that book. So that is another book that I can't stop thinking about. Yet another book that I read that I can't stop thinking about is Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. So in this book they talk about life after death. Okay, it's a fantasy novel. It is a lot of fun when you read that, but it kind of changes your entire perspective about death. So in this, Wallace is the protagonist of the story. So Wallace dies suddenly, and then he is kind of about to transition to another life. Okay, so somewhere in the midst of life and death there is this afterlife sort of a thing, and there he meets a few people. So how he kind of learns to like, you know, unlearn a lot of things that he was taught, and you know, become a better person even in that afterlife is what this book about. And I heard this in an audiobook. So this was narrated by Kurt Gravis. So if you are someone who's looking to start audiobooks, as someone, I mean, I never used to like audiobooks, okay, but ever since I heard this, right, I'm open to reading, I mean, I'm open to hearing audiobooks now. So the audiobook has been so well narrated. It's just like something that just doesn't leave my mind even after like, you know, months of reading it. So this is another book that I can't stop thinking about. I mean, if I go on, I know I will keep going on, but yes, do check out this book as well if you're into fantasy. Which new author did you discover that you will be reading more of next year? So I discovered this author called Sangu Mandana, and she's the author of The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. So this is again a fantasy book where a witch who does not tell her mentor witch that she is going to be helping three young witches kind of like channel their powers, and you know, she actually moves into their house and tries to kind of like, you know, help those three kid witches channel their power is what this premise of this book about. And there she also meets a handsome man, and there is love blossoming in the air. And overall the book kind of had this really good vibe, you know. It is a feel good book. I enjoyed reading this so much. It has magical elements to it. It has witches in it. That makes it even better, right? So I thoroughly enjoyed reading this so much, and yes, I will be reading this author, more of this author. So there is a book being released by this author in May. Let me check out and tell you which one that is. Okay, now I'm going to do some booktube specific questions. Okay, what video are you most proud of this year and why? Okay, of all the videos that I have made this year, I think the one video that I'm most proud of is probably the horror reading challenge. And I also love my video Blind Date with a Book, where I'm wearing the same outfit and I made the video. That is another one of my favorites. So yeah, these are some of my favorite videos. Okay, what are your reading goals for next year? I'm going to keep it as 50 again. So this year I'd kept my target as 50, and I read about 53 books. But next year as well, I'll be keeping it as 50, because I feel like that is enough, because it is definitely like, you know, if I read one book a week, it is more than enough for me to complete about 50 books. If I read more than that, good, but 50 is a target that I want to keep. But if you are not a booktuber, and if you are someone who's kind of like, you don't have to create content for other people, I would suggest that you don't keep a target. Maybe keep a target of like 10 or 15. Okay, like if you really want to kind of keep a target, but I would suggest that you don't keep a target because, like, I don't think you should be losing out on your sleep to read books. I do love doing that. Okay, I really don't mind doing that because I enjoy the process. But at the end of the day, after you work sometimes, or after your school or college, you're really tired and you need that sleep, right? So I feel like it's best if you don't keep targets. But if you're someone like me who really enjoys that, you don't mind even if you don't sleep properly and all of that, then if that's the case, then go for it. But if I were to give you a piece of advice, then please don't keep reading targets. Reading targets, I keep it for myself, and it doesn't mean that I impose it on people. Okay, so with this, we're done with the video. So if you also answered these questions along with me, I really hope you did. Or you can actually go back now and answer those questions and comment below, because I would love to read your answers, because I don't want to be the only one talking in this video. So please do comment your answers below. I would really love to take some of your favorite books so that I can add it to my TBR next year. And next year, I hope is going to be filled with a lot of joy for all of you, a lot of success. I hope that you get all that your heart wishes for. So a very happy new year to you in advance, and I hope this year had, like, whatever this year had for you, like 2024, whatever it made you do, whatever challenges you had, I hope that you're ending it on a restful and a soulful note. So thank you so much for watching my video. If you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing to my channel. I know I've been a little inconsistent this year, and I'm really hoping to be consistent next year. And in fact, like, shooting after such a long time, I feel like I've actually lost my ability to kind of talk. But yeah, we'll be doing more of this next year as well. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you're into books, or if you want to discover your next favorite read. Thank you so much for watching. Stay happy, stay blessed, and stay kind. Bye.